In late 2025, Liam Neeson sat down on a live television talk show and stated, clearly and without hesitation, that he had never met Meghan Markle, never been introduced, never crossed paths. The denial was absolute. No room for interpretation, no space for ambiguity. And it was a lie. We know it was a lie because a photograph exists. Neeson and Meghan Markle, side by side, smiling directly into the camera at a Hillary Clinton fundraiser hosted by the Irish hotelier John Fitzpatrick at his own hotel in Manhattan. She is wearing a bright pink dress. He is towering beside her. They are clearly in the same room, clearly aware of each other, clearly posing together. That photograph has been published. It has been circulated. It is not disputed. And yet, months later, Neeson denied the meeting ever happened. Now, here is what I want you to hold in your mind for the next 30 minutes, because this is the question I am going to answer before this video is over. Why would one of the most respected actors in the world, a man built on a reputation for straightforward honesty, publicly deny a meeting that is documented in a photograph? The answer is not about Liam Neeson. The answer is about what that photograph represents. And what it represents is a chapter of Meghan Markle's life before Prince Harry, before Buckingham Palace, before the Duchess of Sussex title, before the Archewell Foundation, before the Netflix deal, that directly contradicts the single most important story she has ever told about herself, the story that she is self-made. Stay with me, because when you see the full picture, you will understand why an A-list actor would rather be caught in an obvious contradiction than let that thread get pulled any further. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the sequence matters enormously. Sometime in late 2025, Neeson appeared on a live late-night program. The host asked him about encounters with famous people. Neeson's answer was direct. He insisted he had never had the opportunity to meet Meghan Markle and had consequently never been introduced to Prince Harry. That was the end of it. He moved on, the audience moved on, nobody pressed him. But then, just weeks later, in January of 2026, Neeson sat down for another interview. A different show, a different host. And this time, while promoting his latest film, the conversation drifted toward Hollywood, Irish connections, and the fundraising circuit. And Neeson, in that deep, gravelly voice, began to reminisce. He talked about a Hillary Clinton event in New York. He mentioned John Fitzpatrick by name. And then, almost as an afterthought, he said something that landed like a grenade in the carefully managed waters of the Sussex brand. He said he remembered Meghan, that she clung to Fitzpatrick, that she showed up at every single party, clung to him. Think about the weight of that word for a moment. Not accompanied, not attended with. Clung. That is a word that carries a very specific image. It describes dependence. It describes attachment that is visible to everyone in the room. It describes a dynamic where one person needs the other considerably more than the other needs them. And Liam Neeson, a man who had just weeks earlier denied ever meeting this woman, used it casually, as though describing something so obvious and so well known among that particular social circle that it barely warranted special emphasis. So, what do we actually have here? We have a flat denial followed by a vivid recollection. We have a man who said he never met Meghan Markle and then described in detail exactly how she behaved at parties he attended alongside her. That is not a memory lapse. That is not confusion. That is a man who initially calculated that the safest move was to pretend the connection did not exist and then forgot or stopped caring that he had already made that calculation. And the reason he made that calculation in the first place is the part of this story that everyone should be paying attention to. Because according to multiple people who work in the entertainment industry and in public relations, association with Meghan Markle in 2026 has become something that powerful people actively try to avoid. One industry observer described the Sussexes as a third rail in public life. Touch it and you get burned. Every comment gets scrutinized. Every old photograph becomes ammunition. Every casual connection gets reframed as either endorsement or betrayal. Neeson apparently looked at that equation and decided the simplest path was denial. The problem is that photographs do not forget. Let me describe that photograph to you properly, because the details inside it matter more than most people realize. The image was taken at a Hillary Clinton fundraiser. The event was hosted by John Fitzpatrick at the Fitzpatrick Manhattan, his own hotel. This was not a public red carpet where anyone with credentials could walk through. This was an exclusive event. Irish donors, political operators, entertainment industry figures with genuine connections to the Clinton network. The kind of room where everyone knows everyone and invitations are personal rather than institutional. Meghan Markle is standing next to Liam Neeson. She is wearing a form-fitting pink dress. Her posture is confident. She is smiling. Neeson is beside her, tall, composed, clearly aware that a camera is pointed at them. They are not strangers who happen to be captured in the same frame at a crowded event. They are posing together. This is a deliberate photograph of two people who are in the same social circle on the same evening at the same private event. And the reason that photograph matters is not because of Neeson specifically. It matters because of who put Meghan Markle in that room. John Fitzpatrick, his hotel, his event, his guest list, his invitation. That photograph is a receipt. It documents the system by which a cable television actress on a show called Suits, filmed in Toronto, ended up standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the most famous actors on earth at a private political fundraiser in Manhattan. That system has a name, and the name is John Fitzpatrick. To understand what that name actually means in this story, you need to understand who John Fitzpatrick is and how he built the particular kind of power that made him so useful to a young woman trying to climb from the middle rungs of Hollywood into something considerably higher. Fitzpatrick was born in Ireland, the second of 5 children. His parents, Patty and Ethne Fitzpatrick, ran a modest collection of hotels around the country. Nothing grand, nothing glamorous. The kind of family business where the children work. And Fitzpatrick worked. He started at the Killiney Castle Hotel, a property his family owned, doing whatever needed doing. He washed dishes. The clatter of plates and steam rising from kitchen sinks became his summer routine before he was old enough to drive. By 17, he was working behind the bar, learning what he later described as the alchemy of service and conversation. How to read a room, how to make someone feel important, how to remember names. That education was not academic, it was physical, it was instinctive, and it produced a very specific kind of businessman. The kind who understands that in the hospitality industry, the real product is not the room or the meal. The real product is the relationship. Fitzpatrick took that understanding and bet everything on the biggest possible stage, New York City. He built 2 flagship properties there, the Fitzpatrick Manhattan and the Fitzpatrick Grand Central. These were not just hotels, they were embassies, outposts of Irish culture wrapped in 5-star service, with the warmth of a Dublin pub layered underneath the polish of a luxury brand. They attracted a very particular clientele. Irish Americans with money, politicians with Irish connections, entertainment figures with roots on the island, business leaders who needed a discreet and comfortable space to conduct high-level meetings away from the glare of more obvious Manhattan venues. But here is what made Fitzpatrick genuinely powerful, and this is the part that connects directly to Meghan Markle's story. His influence extended far beyond hospitality. He was deeply involved in the Northern Ireland peace process. His contributions were significant enough that Queen Elizabeth II awarded him the Order of the British Empire. Think about that. An Irish hotelier receiving one of the highest honors the British Crown can bestow, specifically for his role in facilitating peace between communities that had been killing each other for decades. That is not a man who simply owns nice hotels. That is a man who operates at the intersection of politics, diplomacy, culture, and wealth. A man who knows everyone. A man whose phone calls get returned. And the connection that mattered most in the context of this story was his relationship with the Clintons. Fitzpatrick was on their campaign finance committees. He hosted fundraising events that brought together entertainment, politics, and business in a single room. His hotel was quite literally the venue where these worlds merged. He was not on the outside looking in. He was the man who controlled who got through the door. And for a young actress trying to build a profile beyond her supporting role on a cable drama, access to that door was worth more than any audition. Here is what most people miss about how power actually works at that level, and I say this as someone who has watched these dynamics operate across decades of royal and political life. The person who controls the guest list at an exclusive fundraiser holds a very specific kind of power. It is not the power of the politician seeking votes. It is not the power of the celebrity generating attention. It is the quieter, more durable power of the connector, the person who decides which strangers become acquaintances and which acquaintances become allies. Fitzpatrick's hotels were not simply buildings with rooms and restaurants. They were filtering systems, sorting mechanisms for human ambition. And Fitzpatrick himself was the algorithm that decided who got promoted from the lobby to the private dining room, from the private dining room to the fundraiser, from the fundraiser to the inner circle. Meghan Markle did not hack that system. She was invited into it by the man who built it. Now, here is where this story moves from interesting to genuinely uncomfortable, and I want to be precise about what is documented, what is alleged, and where the line between them sits. During the years Meghan Markle filmed Suits in Toronto, roughly 2011 through 2017, she was a working actress on a cable show, not a star, not a lead. A supporting cast member on a series that was successful enough to run for years, but not the kind of platform that generates personal wealth on the scale needed to maintain the lifestyle that serious networking in New York and Los Angeles requires. The gap between what that role paid and what it cost to operate in the social circles she was trying to enter was, by multiple accounts, significant. According to several insider accounts and biographical works, including Tom Bower's book on the Sussexes, John Fitzpatrick reportedly stepped into that gap. And the support he allegedly provided was not casual or occasional. It was, by these accounts, systematic, free hotel rooms at his New York properties whenever she was in the city, invitations to dinners at restaurants where the bill would have exceeded what many people earn in a week, personal introductions to people whose names open doors that stay locked for virtually everyone else. And most significantly, according to multiple sources, Fitzpatrick allegedly covered her rent in Toronto. I want you to sit with that specific detail, her rent. Not a hotel room for a weekend, not dinner and drinks at a restaurant. Her monthly housing costs in the city where she lived and worked for years while filming a television series month after month. If that reporting is accurate, and it has been repeated across multiple biographical sources without successful legal challenge, then John Fitzpatrick was not simply a friend who occasionally picked up a check. He was functioning as a patron, a benefactor, a man who identified promise in a younger talent and invested in her future with his own money, consistently, over a period that appears to have lasted years. That arrangement reportedly began around 2014 and continued through the period leading up to her relationship with Prince Harry. The financial commitment alone would have run into tens of thousands of dollars over that period. Toronto's upscale rental market during those years was not inexpensive, and the neighborhoods where a networking actress needed to maintain a credible address were among the priciest in the city. Whoever was paying that bill was making a substantial and ongoing investment. Now, I am going to say something here that I think needs to be said directly, because most coverage of this topic either sensationalizes it into something salacious or ignores it entirely, and neither response is honest. Patronage arrangements between older, wealthier, established figures and younger, ambitious, talented people are not unusual in the entertainment industry. They are, in fact, so common that they are almost structural. They have existed for centuries. The Medici family funded artists. Hollywood studios built entire careers through systems of personal sponsorship. The question is never whether such arrangements exist. The question is always what the arrangement actually involves, what each party gets from it, and whether the public narrative being constructed around the person who benefited from it honestly acknowledges that the arrangement existed at all. And that is where this story gets genuinely uncomfortable for Meghan Markle specifically. because her entire post-royal brand, the Archewell Foundation, the Netflix partnership, the lifestyle ventures, the speaking engagements, every single piece of it is built on a foundational narrative of self-made independence. A woman who carved her own path, who overcame obstacles through talent and determination, who did not need anyone's help to become who she is. And if the Fitzpatrick reporting is accurate, that narrative is, at minimum, incomplete. And at maximum, it is something considerably less flattering than incomplete. The financial support, if it existed as described, was only half of what Fitzpatrick reportedly provided. The other half was access. And in the world Meghan was trying to enter, access was worth more than money. Let me give you a specific example, because the concrete details here tell the story far more effectively than any abstract description could. Fitzpatrick himself has recounted in podcast interviews how he introduced Meghan to the golfer Rory McIlroy. The meeting happened at the bar of one of his hotels, casual, almost accidental in its staging. But the result was a brief, highly publicized connection between Meghan and one of the most famous athletes in the world. They were photographed together. They participated in the Ice Bucket Challenge together, which was a viral internet phenomenon at the time. That single introduction generated more media coverage for Meghan Markle than an entire season of Suits could have produced. But McIlroy was just one introduction. Through Fitzpatrick's Clinton connections, Meghan reportedly attended events that would have been entirely inaccessible to her on her own merits as a mid-level television actress. She was reportedly his guest at the annual St. Patrick's Day celebration at the Obama White House. The Obama White House, a cable television actress from a show most Americans had never heard of, standing in the most powerful building on earth, mixing with political leaders and cultural figures whose names shaped policy and public discourse. That did not happen because of her IMDb credits. That happened because John Fitzpatrick put her name on a list. And once you are inside a room like that, the dynamics shift in ways that are worth understanding precisely, because the access itself changes you. It changes how you carry yourself. It changes how you speak. It changes the references you make in conversation, the names you drop without seeming to drop them, the ease with which you handle the particular kind of small talk that only happens in rooms where everyone present has significant power or significant proximity to power. You begin to move differently. Your expectations adjust upward. The world you came from starts to feel smaller, and the world you have been granted temporary admission to starts to feel like the world you were always meant to inhabit. That transformation, that acquisition of social fluency in the rooms of the extremely powerful, is something that cannot be purchased directly. It can only be absorbed through repeated exposure. And Fitzpatrick, by taking Meghan to event after event, year after year, was providing exactly that exposure. He was not just opening doors. He was teaching her how to walk through them as though she had always belonged on the other side. And the Hillary Clinton fundraisers, the very events where Liam Neeson observed her clinging to Fitzpatrick, were the crown jewels of this access network. These were rooms filled with A-list celebrities, major political donors, media executives, and the kind of people who do not simply attend parties but shape the industries and institutions that define American public life. Meghan Markle was in those rooms, not because she had earned a seat at that table through her own professional achievements, but because a wealthy Irish hotelier with deep political connections chose to bring her as his personal guest. Fitzpatrick has spoken about this period with evident warmth in his public interviews. He has described becoming a fan of Suits. He has talked about making it a point to include Meghan in his social calendar. His fondness appears genuine, and when she married Prince Harry in 2018 at Windsor Castle, Fitzpatrick was on the guest list. An Irish hotelier from New York, seated among European nobility and global celebrities, watching the woman he had introduced to half of Manhattan's power structure walk down the aisle toward a British prince. His presence at that wedding was, in its own way, the culmination of everything their relationship represented. He had opened doors, she had walked through them. And the final door led to the British royal family itself. There is a personal dimension to this story that most coverage treats as a footnote, but which I think reveals something genuinely significant about the dynamic Fitzpatrick's patronage apparently created. During the period when Fitzpatrick was reportedly providing financial support and social access, Meghan was in a relationship with Corey Vitiello, a well-known celebrity chef in Toronto. By multiple biographical accounts, Vitiello became increasingly uncomfortable with Meghan's associations with powerful older men, Fitzpatrick specifically among them. He reportedly questioned the nature of these connections. He reportedly perceived something beneath the surface of what was being presented as purely platonic friendship, a transactional quality, an undercurrent that made him uneasy. Now, I want to be careful here because I am working from biographical accounts rather than direct testimony, and the distinction matters. But the pattern that these accounts describe is worth noting. A young woman receiving significant financial support and social access from a wealthy older man, a romantic partner who senses that the arrangement is not as simple as it appears. Private tension that exists in direct contradiction to the public presentation of the relationship as straightforward friendship. That pattern is not unique to this situation. It is, in fact, one of the oldest patterns in the entertainment industry. And the reason it keeps repeating is that the incentive structure that produces it has never fundamentally changed. What makes it relevant to the broader story is what it suggests about the gap between public presentation and private reality during the years when Meghan Markle was building the connections that would eventually lead her to Prince Harry. If her own romantic partner at the time was uncomfortable with the nature of her relationship with Fitzpatrick, that discomfort itself is a data point. It suggests that the dynamic was visible enough and ambiguous enough to generate concern from someone who was in a position to observe it closely. Now, let me connect all of this to why it actually matters in 2026, because this is not just a historical curiosity. This is a live threat to a multi-million-dollar brand. Meghan Markle's post-royal identity rests on a specific set of pillars: empowerment, authenticity, self-determination, humanitarian purpose through the Archwell Foundation. Independence from the institution she left. Every commercial partnership, every Netflix project, every speaking engagement, every lifestyle venture she launches is built on the audience's belief that this woman is who she says she is, self-made, unassisted, her own creation. The Fitzpatrick story, if it holds up under continued scrutiny, introduces a direct contradiction to that narrative. It suggests that during the formative years of her career, the years when she was building the social network and the public profile that eventually brought her to the attention of Prince Harry's social circle, she was not operating independently. She was operating with significant financial backing and social sponsorship from a wealthy older man whose connections she used systematically to access rooms she could not have entered on her own. And here is the part that I think genuinely keeps the Sussex operation awake at night. This is not a story that requires anyone to prove wrongdoing. There does not need to be a scandal in the traditional sense. No laws broken, no ethical violations in the formal meaning of the term. The damage comes from the gap itself. The gap between the self-made narrative and the documented reality of a patron who reportedly paid rent, provided hotel rooms, arranged introductions, and personally escorted her into the most exclusive rooms in American political and social life. That gap, once it becomes widely understood, erodes the foundation that every piece of the Sussex commercial operation is built on. Not because patronage is inherently wrong, but because the brand depends on the claim that it never happened. I want to draw a comparison here that I think illuminates exactly why this particular vulnerability is so dangerous, and this is my own analysis, so weigh it accordingly. In the financial world, there is a concept called social arbitrage. It describes a strategy where someone acquires a valuable asset, in this case social access, at a low cost in one market, and then deploys it at a much higher price in a different market. Fitzpatrick's world, the Irish-American fundraising circuit, the Clinton network, the Manhattan hotel scene was one market. The price of entry was essentially being charming and available and willing to attend events as someone's guest. The British royal family was the other market. And the social capital Meghan accumulated through Fitzpatrick's network, the polish, the connections, the the comfort in rooms filled with extreme wealth and political power, was the asset she brought to that second market, an asset she had acquired largely on someone else's investment. Social arbitrage is not illegal. It is not even uncommon, but it is fundamentally incompatible with a brand narrative built on the idea that everything was earned independently. And that incompatibility is what makes Liam Neeson's casual reminiscence so dangerous, not because he revealed anything that was not already documented, but because he reminded a very large audience that the documentation exists. Think about what happens to a commercial partnership when the foundational narrative behind it starts to crack. Netflix did not sign the Sussexes because of Harry's military service or Meghan's acting credits. They signed them because of a story, the story of a woman who married into the most famous family on earth, fought for her independence, and emerged as a symbol of self-determination. That story has a specific commercial value. It attracts a specific audience. It generates a specific kind of engagement. And if the self-determination part of that story turns out to rest on a foundation of unreported patronage, the commercial value does not simply decrease, it inverts. The same audience that was drawn to the empowerment narrative becomes the audience most repelled by the suggestion that the narrative was incomplete. Brands that bet on authenticity do not fail gradually. They fail catastrophically, because the very quality that made them attractive becomes the quality that makes the betrayal feel most personal to the people who believed in them. The responses from the key figures in this story, or more precisely, the absence of responses, tell their own story. Neeson's contradictory statements, the denial, followed by the fond recollection, suggest a man who initially tried to insulate himself from the Sussex controversy and then either forgot or abandoned the effort. His correction was not a formal retraction. It was a lapse, a moment of unguarded honesty that contradicted a deliberate strategy of avoidance. And the fact that he felt the need for that strategy in the first place tells you everything about how toxic proximity to the Sussex story has become for people in the entertainment industry. Fitzpatrick's public comments about Meghan have been consistently warm but carefully constructed. He acknowledges the closeness of their relationship, he speaks fondly of her, he confirms attending her wedding. But when it comes to the specific nature of his financial support, his language becomes a masterclass in ambiguity. He has stated publicly that they were not dating. That phrasing is worth examining closely. Not dating is not the same as not financially supporting. It is not the same as not paying rent. It is not the same as not providing systematic access to social networks that would otherwise have been inaccessible. It is a denial of one specific characterization, romance, that simultaneously sidesteps every other question about the arrangement. And Meghan herself has maintained what can only be described as strategic silence on the entire Fitzpatrick chapter. No acknowledgement, no correction, no clarification. In a public life that has been characterized by a willingness to share her personal narrative in great detail, through interviews, through a Netflix documentary series, through Prince Harry's memoir, through Archwell Foundation communications, the complete absence of any reference to the man who reportedly funded her lifestyle and introduced her to the people who changed her life is in itself a piece of information. Silence is a choice, and in an era of constant media engagement, deliberate silence about a specific topic tends to communicate one of two things. Either the topic is genuinely too painful to discuss publicly, or the honest version of the story does not support the preferred narrative. Given that Meghan has shown no reluctance to discuss other difficult chapters of her life in extensive public detail, including allegations against the royal family that she clearly considers damaging to the institution, the first explanation seems less persuasive than the second. A woman who will discuss her mental health struggles on global television, who will describe feeling suicidal within the walls of Buckingham Palace, who will accuse unnamed members of the royal household of racism, but who will not mention the man who allegedly paid her rent and introduced her to half of Manhattan's power structure, is making a choice that speaks louder than any press release ever could. Let me pull all of this together. Because the individual pieces are interesting, but the pattern they form when you arrange them in sequence is what actually matters. A young actress on a cable television show in Toronto lacks the financial resources and social connections to access the elite circles where careers are made and transformed. A wealthy Irish hotelier in New York identifies her, takes an interest, and begins providing systematic support. Free accommodation, paid rent, restaurant dinners, personal introductions to political figures, athletes, entertainment executives, and Clinton inner circle members. She accompanies him to exclusive fundraisers where she is photographed with A-list celebrities, including Liam Neeson. She attends events at the Obama White House. Her profile rises, her network expands, her comfort in rooms of extreme wealth and power increases. Her romantic partner at the time reportedly notices the dynamic and becomes uncomfortable. The patronage continues regardless. Eventually, she meets Prince Harry. The social polish, the comfort with power, the network she built through Fitzpatrick's introductions, all of it positions her as someone who can move in royal circles without appearing out of place. She marries into the British royal family, she leaves the institution, she builds a post-royal brand entirely around the narrative of self-made independence. And the man who reportedly funded the early stages of that entire trajectory is never publicly acknowledged. His name does not appear in the self-told version of her story. Years later, an actor who attended the same parties tries to deny ever meeting her. The denial fails because a photograph exists. And then, in a moment of unguarded reminiscence, the actor describes exactly what he saw at those parties. A young woman clinging to her patron, showing up everywhere he went, attached to his arm at event after event. That is the pattern. And the reason it matters is not because patronage is wrong. Patronage has produced some of the greatest art and some of the most successful careers in human history. The reason it matters is because the person who benefited from it has built a global brand on the explicit claim that it never existed. In every photograph, every biographical account, every casual comment from an actor who forgot he had already denied the connection chips away at that claim a little further. There is a principle in intelligence analysis that I think applies directly here. Analysts distinguish between a single anomalous data point and a pattern of corroborating evidence. A single source claiming that someone received financial support from a wealthy patron could be jealousy, could be fabrication, could be a misunderstanding of a genuinely innocent friendship. But when you have multiple biographical accounts pointing in the same direction, a romantic partner who reportedly noticed the same dynamic, photographic evidence placing the subject at exclusive events as the patron's guest, the patron's own carefully worded acknowledgments, and now a famous actor's unguarded reminiscence confirming the visual reality of the arrangement at those very events, you are no longer dealing with a single anomalous data point. You are dealing with convergent evidence. And convergent evidence from independent sources is the single most reliable indicator that the underlying picture is accurate, even when every individual source could theoretically be disputed on its own. So let me answer the question I opened with. Why would Liam Neeson deny meeting Meghan Markle when a photograph proves he did? He denied it because association with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has become professionally radioactive. Because every connection to Meghan Markle in 2026 gets weaponized by one side or the other of an ongoing public war that shows no signs of ending. Because Neeson looked at the cost of simply confirming a casual meeting that happened years ago at a fundraiser and concluded that the cost was higher than the cost of a denial that might eventually be contradicted. He was wrong about that calculation, as it turns out. The contradiction arrived anyway. And it arrived in his own words, on camera, in a moment of unguarded memory that no public relations team could walk back. But the fact that he made that calculation at all tells you something genuine and something deeply revealing about the position the Sussexes now occupy in public life. They have become a subject that powerful people would rather lie about than engage with honestly. And that, in itself, is a form of exile more complete than any formal separation from the royal family could ever produce. When the mere acknowledgement of having once stood next to someone at a party is considered a professional risk by one of the most established actors in the world, the person generating that risk has a problem that no amount of brand management can solve. The photograph still exists. Tom Bower's reporting still stands unchallenged in court. Fitzpatrick's carefully worded acknowledgments are still on the record. The biographical accounts of paid rent and systematic social sponsorship have not been retracted or successfully disputed. And Meghan Markle's public narrative still does not include any acknowledgement of the man who, by multiple accounts, funded the lifestyle and opened the doors that made everything that followed possible. That gap between the documented record and the official story is not shrinking. With every resurfaced photograph, with every unguarded comment from someone who was in those rooms, with every biographical detail that gets re-examined under the sharper light of 2026, the gap gets wider. And a brand built on authenticity cannot survive indefinitely on top of a widening gap. Eventually, the weight of what is known becomes heavier than the scaffolding of what is claimed. And when that scaffolding gives way, it does not collapse gradually, it goes all at once. Prince Harry staked his entire post-royal life on the idea that his wife was unfairly treated by an institution that could not accept who she really was. If a growing body of evidence suggests that the institution may not have been the only party offering an incomplete version of the truth, then the story Harry told the world, the story he wrote a book about, the story he built a Netflix deal around, the story he left his family and his country for, starts to look very different. Not wrong, necessarily, but incomplete in exactly the same way that Meghan's self-made narrative now appears incomplete. And incomplete, in a story where authenticity is the only currency that matters, is just another word for broken. What happens next depends entirely on whether the people around Meghan Markle understand something that I think the evidence strongly suggests they have not yet grasped. In the age of digital permanence, there is no such thing as a buried chapter. There is only a chapter that has not been searched for yet. Every photograph uploaded to a server in 2012 still exists on that server in 2026. Every guest list archived by a hotel still sits in a filing cabinet or a database somewhere. Every podcast interview where a patron spoke fondly about a young actress he took under his wing is still indexed, still searchable, still quotable. The past does not disappear. It waits. And Liam Neeson, whether he meant to or not, just told a very large audience exactly where to start looking.